Hello. We just like spend maybe a minute or two for more people to join, but I just wanted to welcome everyone who is able to join us tonight to discuss this wonderful book and to listen from awesome experts. We have today Dr. Jennifer Bruder and Dr. Yousri Marzouki. And I would actually let them introduce themselves, like spend maybe a minute or two to introduce themselves. So I feel like it's nicer. But before we do that, allow me to tell you a little bit about what we do. So for people who this is their first time in Read to Lead session, we do this monthly and sometimes twice a month. We sometimes do it in both Arabic and English. And we discuss books related to business or self-development, sometimes psychology. They're all nonfiction and they're all very useful for self-development and for helping you in your career and your personal life and helping you grow. So if you want to know more information, just follow us on our Instagram account at Qatar Reads, and we use the same handles for Facebook and Twitter. So hope to hear from you. So welcome again, doctors, and they're also both professors. So they're used to being on the spot and they're used to sharing their knowledge. So who would like to start? Maybe ladies first.
Sure. Yes, I'm happy to start. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm really excited to be here tonight to discuss this totally fascinating and interesting book. My name is Jennifer Bruder. I'm an experimental cognitive psychologist, and I work as an assistant teaching professor at Carnegie Mellon University here in Qatar. So thank you for coming tonight, and thanks for having me, Muna.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I'm Dr. Yousri Marzouki. I'm an assistant professor of cognitive psychology in the psychology program in Qatar University. And I'm here to join Dr. Jennifer and Ms. Mona to talk about this interesting book as well.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, I want to check with you guys. How many of you have read the book? So we'll start with a quick poll, if you can answer it in a second. So just a little bit of background. This is written by Dan Ariely, and he's an MIT professor, and he has a strong economic background. Have you read before? So yeah. And the book is even though a lot of people, they think it's mainly for psychology, maybe background people or for business, but I actually, after reading it, I found it's useful for anybody. And you can apply it for your personal life or for your businesses. There's so much theories. So let's start with answering this fun poll. Have you read the book before? All right, we're getting some answers right now. Wonderful. Meanwhile, allow me to talk a little bit about the book, give you a little bit of summary for people who haven't read it. And please, Professor Jennifer and Yousri, if you want to jump in, go ahead. So the book, it has different chapters and different theories. And basically the whole concept about it is how, even though we feel we are in control in our decisions, actually, a lot of time what we do is influenced by our environment, by our peers, by our previous experiences, by so many other things. And actually, we are predictably irrational. He makes this argument. And he's done that through a series of experimentations. So this is all backed up with research and by a lot of other work. I'm wondering, which theory did you like the most? Maybe you can tell us. Maybe your take. How would you summarize the book? Maybe Dr. Yousri, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean,
someone told you what is Predictably Irrational about, what would you say?
I mean, basically, the whole book is a good or a compelling set of evidence from behavioral phenomena to show that humans are not that rational, and we don't think in a very rational way, and this is inherent in our features as human beings. This is very interesting because against the old theory of rational choice, everything must be followed by very straightforward algorithm to explain the choices and to explain the decision we make. But it turned out over many years now we have a significant amount of studies and research and experiment to show that humans are not that rational, and they tend to be biased by a lot of factors, including the context, including the meaning of the situation they're put in, that give them a different perception of what is expected from them to do. And this discrepancy between our own perception and what is required from us to do is very interesting to predict a human behavior outcome in a very critical situation, but also is very important to prevent some catastrophic outcomes for like silly decision or biased decision. And understanding this fundamentally can help us also weight the way we conjugate our behavior regarding the different stakes and costs and benefit that are vital for our survival in life. This is the way I can frame, without spoiling a lot of stuff regarding the book, what is the take-home message for me.
Yeah, and maybe I can add that on top of that all, we are also under the impression that we are rational. So this irrationality comes at this sort of like surprise, because we always believe that we are so much in control of our decision-making process and that we have really thought things through and we know what we're doing. But it's very easy to show that emotions, or like Professor Yousri said, context, past experiences, our expectations, our mood, everything will influence this. And it's easy to demonstrate that this perceived reality that we believe we live in is it's easy to demonstrate that it's actually not the case. And so this book is exploiting those kind of cognitive phenomenon with regards to specifically like our consumer choice and how we behave in these economic types of situations. So yeah, so it's very interesting, and I think one of the big messages is also to slow down and be knowledgeable, educate yourself, and really stop and think about why you're making decisions, and as to what degree that's possible, because it's very, very difficult, because it happens so naturally and so quickly, our decision-making processes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, this is such a wonderful point that you made, that it happens naturally. Like, and it's, we a lot of the decisions doesn't have that much thinking behind it. And I feel like this is part of even our evolution, that it's actually time consuming to think and really try to dig deep with like our decisions and the drive behind it. So you get like, a lot of times the coffee even that you choose, like, you're so used to grabbing, the Starbucks cup at the, maybe at interest of your work on your way, because it's easy, and you get used to it and you compare to it as well, and you become like that's your own reality. So before like we get more deep into the theories and about the examples that he mentioned as well, I want to like ask you like more questions about the theories. Which one did you think it was most applicable, or most maybe shocked you the most? For me personally, it was the relativity one. That was like kind of like eye-opening to me. So I want to hear what about your choices.
Dr. Jennifer?
Us or the readers? Oh, okay. Yeah, the relativity one was very interesting with regards to the anchoring and so on and so forth. I think what I quite liked was this. What I thought was very interesting, and it was a bit new to me, was this idea of the social norms and the market norms, and how. So we have two kind of ways of operating. For those who haven't read the book, there's like, when we are going to an exchange with somebody, if someone invites us for dinner, for example, you don't offer to pay your friend for the dinner. That violates the social norm that they're giving you something. And if you do offer to pay, it becomes very awkward. And so they did these series of experiments which showed the differences to how we behave in social situations versus market-driven situations, and how money can like being paid for something or doing something for free will be perceived differently under different circumstances. And I think we have some examples of that as well later on to discuss. But I thought that that was one of the most interesting examples that came out of this. And also he started to go into like this this discussion about like maybe we're creating too much of a market-driven society when many of our behaviors are actually socially the fundaments of them are social. So why are we creating kind of this market aspect? Because it ruins our motivation basically in those contexts. So that was, I like that. That was quite interesting. What about you, Yousri?
Yeah, I mean, what I like the most, probably because, you know, when we are familiar with the theories, sometimes we're not that easily surprised. But one of the cool concept I found in the book is definitely the fallacy of supply and demand. And I can link that to current context. For example, take the hand sanitizer. Or the first time the pandemic invaded the world, we know that we value any product based on the quality, based also on its value and also on its availability. So at that time, the hand sanitizer are not available, not that much actually, but it became a rare product. And we attended and we witnessed actually something, the prices are ridiculously high, very, very high of the hand sanitizers. Now, when the supply, I mean, it is available product, people think, wrongly of course, that the prices are getting lower, which is not true actually. The prices are coming back to their original value. It's just our perception because it increases very fast during the inception of the pandemic. And we gave this value based on social norm because there is a matter of, for some people, life or death if I go out without hand sanitizer. We came up to the conclusion that this product is vital. It has very high quality. The value will increase automatically. But now coming back to normal, we believe that it is cheaper, but it's never get cheaper. It's actually the original price. And this is a cool concept actually to understand how we can fluctuate between our perception of the value of things coming from social perception as well. And it will impact our behavior during times of pandemic or during times of the availability of any product actually. This is a cool concept.
I also want to mention, like, this is, even though it's like the first chapter, but like it's talking about relativity, and back to it because it's like it's maybe my favorite. It's like how you always make decisions based on like what's around you. And there was this interesting thing that they've done about how much they measured how happy you are about your salary based on your peers. And there was like they mentioned how when they like there was like outrageous like CEOs in the US, like they were having like outrageous like salaries and stuff. So they thought maybe if they made it like public like information, that you know, they will stop having such outrageous you know, numbers. And what ended up happening in reality is the complete opposite. They thought that people became like more mean value. So I was like really surprised by this. Like I did not expect this out. All right, I have the presentation. So here we go. We're talking about this is the one, right, Dr. Jennifer?
Sure, we can start here. This is sort of a warm-up activity, we can say, to introduce you to some of the basic, some of the fundamental parts of cognition which are related to the concepts of the book, and get you participating a little bit in the chat as well. You could write in the chat if you wanted. For example, for the first questions, do you perceive the boxes A and B in the top picture as being the same color? Just write yes or no. Let's see if we can get some responses in the chat. This is usually what I do with my students.
I'm sending the poll now.
Okay, or we can do a poll. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So we can't.
8% said yes. 14%, 20%.
And some in the chat say no. Okay, so since we have both of the pictures on the same slide here, we could also do the second poll, and then we can talk about what's going on here in the next slide, probably. So, Yousri, do you want to make a poll about the strawberries?
Yes.
What, I don't know what to put in the poll though. What? Oh, here we go. A and B are the same color. Oh, stop! No. Okay.
Here, A, B, I put, all right?
Okay, okay. So here, what color are the strawberries in the photo? See, it's also fine to answer in the chat, actually. Just, you know, quickly write the color that you see the strawberries to be. Okay, so we're having vast majority sees the strawberries as being red, and a few people see them as not being red, so some other color. And this is interesting because so what we have here, we go to this next slide here. What we can see is if we just put a kind of a bar across the middle of the A and B boxes, you see that actually those two gray boxes are in fact the same color. You have the exact same boxes on the left that you see on the right. Okay, but we've just eliminated a little bit of the sensory world of the visual aspects of those boxes to create a different kind of sensation for your visual system. And so actually, even though you perceive them as being different colors, they are the same color. And so what did we have? We had like, I can't see the results of that poll here, but the vast majority saw them as being different colors, right? And so this is kind of a nice way to introduce people to the idea that we're not as rational as we think we are, and our perceptions deceive us all the time. So the way that we perceive these objects is in fact not a reflection of the actual reality of what they look like. And the same is true for these strawberries. So we perceive them as, most of us perceive them as being, you know, they don't look like a really rich red strawberry, but it's red somehow for most of us, right? But if you actually take a pixel kind of where you can guess what take the pixels and see what color it really is, it's actually gray. Those strawberries are gray. So what's happening? Why are we perceiving the strawberries as red? And if you want to talk in the audience, I think there's also a speak function. But and this is related to our decision-making processes in the sense what Professor Yousri was talking about at the very beginning when he was discussing the book, is that we use our past experiences, we use our beliefs about certain situations in order to make decisions about those situations. And we do this kind of unconsciously. We know, based on our experiences, that strawberries are red, so we can't help but seeing these strawberries as red, even though there are no red hues in this picture. So you kind of take this premise and you can apply it to a lot of the decision making that is also here in the book. And just keep in mind that that what we do perceive and believe that we perceive and strongly experience as reality is not in fact in the case at all, and that includes a lot of our decision making. Yeah, so I don't want to be the only one who talks, but I'm just looking in the chat. Okay.
A question from Aidan Suleiman, and I was wondering if you wanna, one of you, if you wanna take it, can you explain more about the point of the cause of zero cause? So So this is kind of early on in the book, and let me pull my notes.
Okay. Can I go ahead and start the?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the zero cost are funny situations that we may encounter more often when we are invited, for example, to I don't know, imagine that you walk into the mall and you can spot a long queue waiting for free ice cream, for example, and you have another stuff to do in the mall actually, and it turns out to be sometimes very urgent business to finish, but you find yourself waiting in this long queue just for the sake of having this free ice cream. But you will not wait the outcome or the cost of the outcome, which is wasting time for doing nothing instead of doing more other interesting stuff at the same time. You'll find yourself also engaged in the fact of waiting. There is a strong commitment when we get driven to the idea of the label free stuff. And this is very intriguing, because how can we allow ourselves to not perceive the sometimes very negative and catastrophic outcome of our behavior in accepting the zero cost? Because the zero cost for us is getting a free ice cream and getting ice cream for free. But what's going to be next? What's the outcome? What's the consequence of such decision? And we will end up losing the time, probably also missing the opportunity to finish our business on time, and all the ramification from such a thing. Of course, one of the explanation is this is one situation that is another illustration of how the brain and the mind are amazingly lazy machines. And these lazy machines tend all the time to find the shortcut and to completely overlook tiresome and tedious path to follow a solution or to follow a decision, although this tiresome decision can be the best outcome to our situation. But we tend all the time to let go of effortful choices and only accept the ones without any effort, because this is how our brain works. And this is what we call the principle of cognitive economy. And the idea of the cognitive economy, how I can optimize the available resources to have the less effortful choice at hand. This is quickly an explanation. I don't know if Professor Jennifer can add something.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. It's this default. It's related to also the default mode, kind of, that it's easiest to go for the free. And there's, like you said, it's kind of a lazy system that we're dealing with, and we will make those decisions which require the least amount of effort. And I think we also have some other examples of that later on as well.
On that point as well, I feel like one of the tricks that you can use in your business, but it's not the most honest one, but it does drive profit. Basically, you can use this theory. It's like when you're marketing something and you can say free delivery, or get this like kind of like free offer, combo, whatever meal. And this kind of like thinking makes people, what triggers in your mind is like, if I miss this free opportunity, is like whatever kind of offer, there's like a fear of losing. There's a fear of loss. So like actually they feel like if I skip on it, I'm gonna be losing something. And as you know, like our mind is hardwired that like we don't want to, as part of our evolution, we don't want to lose anything. Like you would rather when Dan Ariely, like he mentioned, for example, that you would be more sad about the things that you would lose than the stuff, for example, like let's say you lose your phone. You will like be super sad about it because it belongs to you. Then if like something else equally, for example, even if it's like equal amount or even more, but it doesn't belong to you, like you lose it. There's just like, I think it's just like something also like personal and more emotional related. So that's like kind of cost zero, like it plays a lot on an emotion. And yeah, Raja is saying FOMO. Yes, FOMO. You're definitely.
The explanation of loss here, loss is letting go of something, but the idea is how you can acquire something for free is more about having available resources that I don't have to spend from my own resources to get. So that's the trade-off that you are making here. Maybe the explanation in terms, I'm not so convinced. Maybe there is a bit of reality in the idea of loss, but it's not about letting go of something. It's about acquiring something for free because it's an available resource. And this also can be explained by our the way our brain is wired from evolutionary point of view, because if you have the resources available, you don't have to waste time and effort to find the same idea in another place. The only thing is about the timing. The thing is, when you are facing the free opportunity on the wrong timing, it will be another cost, an additional cost, because it will be interfering with another activity with a different purpose that may be vital to your life. That's the thing here. So I'm kind of turning down a little bit the idea of loss.
Thoughts, and the way I look at it is like people also like even if afraid of missing out something, even if they don't buy it, like they feel like they lost it. So for example, in the Black Friday, a lot of time like I've witnessed that even in Qatar, the shops like they will put the same like prices in the same range, but they put on it like the marketing around it will be free and there's this and don't miss out, and like you will find the lines crazy just because they label it and they don't want to miss it. We have to shop on Black Friday, you know? So it is two theories, and it's good to like hear different perspective, and hopefully like our audience in here, when they read the book, they can be, okay, I agree with Dr. Yousri, or they can the way.
But I think that many marketing studies have shown that when sales are low, just putting a sign out that they're giving something away for free. It could be something totally useless, that when you went to the shopping mall that day, you never had it in your mind that you wanted that or that you needed it. But you see that they're giving this free thing away. So you go into this store that you hadn't originally planned on going into. And then what they ultimately observe is that the sales go up. And so this draws people in, and they end up spending money that they didn't intend on spending because there was this free lure. The flip side of that is, and that's like the market-driven kind of free, and how to get people to spend more money. I'm always a little bit skeptical of how marketing professionals use this cognitive psychology to increase spending. But like if you've ever gone into the malls now, what you notice is that there's a lot of olfaction, like olfactory cues everywhere. So some years ago, stores, they started to realize that if they could brand smell, and they could get smells that people really connected with their memory with that brand, and they like those smells, they can increase sales. So now things become like this olfactory overload. And there's a funny anecdote from out of South Korea, where they actually are marketing like in buses with smells as well. So people don't realize that this is influencing their decision making. So you'll be on the bus, and then there are the TVs with advertisements on them. And then as the bus gets closer to, let's say, Dunkin' Donuts, the Dunkin' Donuts ad comes on. But what also happens is that they have like something to put scent into the air on the bus. And so they put like the smell of the donut also into the bus. And then they are trying to like manipulate you in all sorts of ways to think that you made a decision that was yours, but really it's like you've been suggested from your visual senses, from your olfactory senses. Your taste buds then start watering because it's very linked to your tastes. And yeah, so it's interesting. On the social side of things, this free though plays a different role. At least that's how it's also talked about here in the book. If somebody bakes, like I think the example was, somebody comes to work and there are 100 people at work, and they baked 100 cookies and they give the cookies away for free. Everyone will be polite and only take one cookie, not to compromise everybody else's ability to, enjoy these delicious cookies. But if they sell them for, 5 cents a cookie, then suddenly you don't care that much about your colleagues anymore and whether or not they get to taste the cookies. You've got a market-driven perspective on your side, and you are welcome to take as many as you want, for example. So there are also different ways that free works, depending on if you're functioning in a market situation or in a social norm situation.
That is super interesting. Would you like to take some of the questions? We're having great comments and questions in here.
The question of Alicia is related also to the slide presented by Professor Jennifer, and I can add something, if I can.
Easy.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the question is, how do you propose we irrational beings can overcome these illusions? Actually, we cannot overcome an illusion. It's not a matter of learning. And this is an interesting fact that you can learn from the book itself. The idea is, and this is what I'm going to say now, is depressing, but in a positive way. It's a depressing reality about ourselves. Actually, we live in this world, but not in a live version. We live in this world with a small delay. This delay is caused, of course, but when we acquire information from the outside, there is the whole processing coming from the peripheral part to the central part of the nervous system, and there is the transmission of neurons. It's a matter of milliseconds and sometimes microseconds, but it is enough, this amount of delay, to create a distortion from the reality. So, which means that we never end up having a copy-paste of the reality outside. It's also a way to show that our cognition is very dynamic, brain is very dynamic. We recreate, we amplify the information. There is a lot of noise coming from different factors, and the information is not acquired. It's not acquired at the same, and it's not acquired live. We live in this world in a delay. It's like we have a playback of a video. So this positively depressing reality can tell volumes about how our cognition works, which means that, but the illusions, all the illusions we are presenting, and Ariely, the author, made a quite interesting distinction for people outside academia to make the difference between what we call optical illusion, which is visual, from cognitive illusion, which is more mental. The illusions are studied only in the lab context. Sometimes we face them in reality, but they are often a good tool for researcher in psychology. I use optical illusion in my classes, in the lab, in my experiments, and they are good tools and a good way to understand features about our perception. They are only there to reveal that our perception is all the time biased. Our perception is based on an amplification of the reality, is another version of the reality. So we cannot, overcoming this illusion, it's pointless, because the illusion are inherent. These illusion, we tend to distort the reality. But what is interesting is that also we never learn from this illusion, because the instant the illusion is lifted, look to this slide, for example. Professor Jennifer showed you that if you take a small pixel, which is the objective reality of this visual information, the bit of information, you can see gray and some sort of Tiffany color, but you still persist on seeing red, unless, of course, you have a color blindness. This is another issue, but you still perceive the red. You cannot learn from the knowledge about the illusion. You can acquire this knowledge, and this knowledge will be all the time conflicting with what you are seeing, which means that we add on top of that another illusion, the illusion of stability. We believe that our system, our cognition, ourself is stable, but it's not actually. That's why we fill in the gap. This is the role of our consciousness. We fill in the gap all the time to find the meaning. Our brain is not equipped to deal with missing pieces of information in any reality we face, and automatically we tend to fill in the gaps, either with this illusion or the previous one, and it can be also in the context of cognitive illusion by twitching the instruction in one questionnaire, like the polls earlier, or the example. There is another slide used by Professor Ariely, for example, about the choices going to Rome or going to Paris, and the decoy effect. They are cognitive illusions, but they are there to deceive us. But unfortunately, we cannot learn. It's hard to learn from these illusions, because they are inherent about how our cognition works. Just to conclude, the same delay they make us not live live in this world is very important also to explain our richness, our human being. We are different because we don't perceive things about the same, thanks to these distortion to reality. That's it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So since you mentioned the example that we have in the slides,
Yeah.
should we
This is interesting, is like about the decoy effect mentioned by Professor Jennifer that can follow up on that.
Okay. So this is another poll we wanna. Should we like also?
We can jump to the decoy effect, or we can do this. It's kind of funny, but it's just that one just shows that people perceive the world differently too. So we have the illusions, but we also have different ways that we perceive the illusions, just to know that we're not all up. We could do one of them just for fun. People might know it already.
Oh yeah, the internet broke over this whole dress thing. It was like a thing. Like everyone was asking about it. It's super interesting. Okay, is this the one? This is the one we're talking about. This is kind of also in the beginning of the book. Would you like to go through it, Professor Jennifer?
Sure. So this is from Professor. This is from the book directly, and this is one of the slides that he uses as well. And so it's just really small, so I have to look. So it's about asking. So he noticed. The story is that he was flipping through the magazine, The Economist, and he saw this ad, and he said, "Okay, so I could get a subscription to The Economist online for 1 year for $59. Or I could get a subscription in print for 1 year for $125, or I could get a subscription in print and online, so have both of them essentially for $125. And so he was like, oh, that's interesting. And so he conducted an experiment, and he asked people, if you were going to buy The Economist, which one would you pick? And we could ask the audience if you wanted, just to see if we get the same results.
I will create the poll right away.
Okay.
Which one would you buy?
So the online, the print, or the print plus online, and the print and the print plus online are the same price.
Print, online, print plus online. Okay.
Okay. So the poll's up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So far, print and online is the majority. Oh, now we have print the majority. Super interesting.
This is not a very good recreation of the original experimental settings, but it gives us something to lean our discussion on, I would say.
We didn't finish the poll.
Yeah, that's right.
Wait.
But quick interesting fact about Qatar, actually, like the newspaper industry, speaking of print, while all over the world is declining, and Qatar is actually increasing. So even though that the digital is still like taking big presence, but actually, like if you notice, all of our newspapers, they're thick, they're colored mostly, there is investment in it.
Okay, so we also then, that brings up an interesting point. We also have to keep in mind that Professor Ariely's book is completely written based on the American context, right? Yeah, so that's another really, like the culture has not been taken into consideration here. We're sort of speaking generally about, assuming,
However, the concept of the example still stands because like there is a decoy. Do you want to mention it? There's a twist in here.
Yeah, so the decoy is supposed to be the print subscription. Actually, the idea was that the marketers or whoever at The Economist don't actually expect people to choose only the print version, but they're trying to get them to spend $125 and choosing both. And so this is like a decoy. Or it could be an anchor where you feel like, oh, I got a deal because it's like I get the web subscription for free. So in his studies, people overwhelmingly actually chose the print plus web, so the print plus online subscription here, which we have kind of a tie between that and the print, which is, I don't know how to explain that. That's interesting, but yeah.
But fun fact, he called The Economist to get more information about the result, but they removed these options from their official website. But he took this version and made his own experiment based on these choices. But actually, I don't know what happened. Maybe they didn't find any commercial utility to this strategy and they just take it out. This is for fun fact, because he asked them actually to understand what's going on, and if
there was that much thought behind it, if they had figured something out of, cognition. But I think on the next slide, let's see, can I go? So on the next slide, we have now, like, if the people were presented with this second option experimentally, the second version of the options, which is missing the middle option. So if you had the option to buy only the online version for $60 or $59, or the print plus online version for $125, what would you buy? And so in his experiments, most people then chose the online version only. And I think if we go to the next slide, yes, you see the results here. So can you see my mouse? Probably not, hey? But what you see is in the first version, where you have the three options, in his experiment, actually nobody chose the print subscription at all. And 84%, and this is like, this is not a proper experiment that we've just done, it's just for fun. But in his experiment, 84% have chosen to take the two options for $125, and only 16% chose the online version only. Whereas when he removes the print subscription option, you can't see, because at least I can't see because our little icons are in the way. But what happens is it flips. So the majority now choose the online subscription, and the minority choose the print plus web subscription. Okay, so something is happening to the cognition of these people in the experiment based on the fact that they had this decoy option in the middle.
So basically, your decision is influenced. So in a normal situation, you might think, oh, this Netflix subscription is great, or this whatever subscription is great. But I think as you only compared it to the option that you have in front of you, and that wasn't maybe exactly what you wanted. You didn't really have deep thinking and decision process before you looked at it. You looked at it, then you made that decision. So it was influenced with what was around it. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, and you don't realize how much it's influencing you. You think you're making your decision based on what you really want, but this experiment shows that actually, depending on how the options are presented to you, you might want something else. And so they can change your desires based on the way they present the options.
Yep.
So there's another example of the decoy where there was, for example, there was a company that manufactures bread maker machines, and they weren't selling so well. So the way they kind of overcome this issue is they marketed some more expensive machines and less expensive. So the people then, when they made a decision, they made it in comparison to the other machines there, and that increased the sales dramatically. So
so when you go to a store and you see all let's say you want to buy a bread machine. Actually, I've been looking for a bread machine in Qatar for 3 years and I haven't found one. So you're not going to find them here. But let's say you want to buy something else like a microwave. There'll be that really expensive one, and you might use that as your anchor. Well, this is too much money, but boy, it sure is a good one. But this one that's a little bit less, the middle option, must be almost as good, and it must be way better than the ones that are less. So you would choose that second most expensive option. But if you remove the very most expensive one from the equation, you won't make the same choice. You'll choose an even cheaper one probably.
Yep.
So that's something to keep in mind when you're shopping.
And if anyone has a bread machine that he can recommend, they can do that to Professor Jennifer.
Yeah, where can I find a bread machine in this country? But this is also related to the salary example that you brought up at the beginning of the talk, Muna, that you start comparing yourself to others all the time. And, you reach a great point in your life, you're feeling really good. You think, oh, I've got such a nice house. I'm happy with my car. I'm happy with this and that. And then suddenly somebody moves in next door who's got a better car or, more fancy stuff in their house, and suddenly you start feeling inadequate, and then you start comparing, and then this makes you want more. And this is similar to these processes that we're describing here, that we're always kind of having this anchor that we're making our judgments about. We can't hold too many options in our mind at once, so we usually have one that we compare everything else to. So the other example in the book was real estate agents taking you first to a very expensive house that you probably can't afford, but then that becomes your anchor. So all the other houses that you see get compared to that one, and you end up maybe purchasing something that was originally out of your budget, for example.
And there's one chapter that they're talking about deadline, and they're talking about procrastination. And
Yes.
I felt like, you know, you being professors, you probably dealt with that a lot. So to give some context for our audience who haven't read the book, it's basically saying that the professor, he made like kind of experiment. He made two groups with the students. One group, he told him, you create your own deadlines. You can, like, as long as you submit it before end of the academic year. And then the other one, he gave them like the usual, deadlines for the terms and stuff. And as you may predict, most of the students just crammed everything until like the end of the academic year, and like the quality of their work was worse. Things like kind of were messy. And he also linked that to success and how having these deadlines allow you to be a more successful person. So not just with academia, like whenever you have a goal. So let's say if you have a goal for losing weight, you have to have like a target, and work against it. You have to have a deadline. I need to lose, 5 kg by end of this month. And actually, he mentions how powerful this is, and how without putting goals and deadlines, your productivity and your accomplishments goes lower. So I want to hear your comment on it, and what's your explanation? Why do people, even though they know this is correct, they know that, agree with it, they still don't practice it? What is happening there? Can you tell us?
Yeah. Can I go on?
Go ahead. Yeah, for sure.
I did actually an experiment with my own students here in QU, and I don't completely agree with the results of this experiment for many reasons. First, although I liked very well that Ariely made reference to the underpinning of the behaviors that we observe from cognitive perspective, because not a lot of behavior economists go back and see the cognitive roots to explain what's going on. The idea of procrastination is very, for me, promising in this context to explain many choices and how we can delay them. But the idea of the deadline, and I think every cognitive psychologist can agree with that, you don't work within coercive context versus non-coercive context, because the deadline gives some sort of coercion, and you need to work within the limitation of this particular context. But procrastination is broader than that. You can simply delay a task when you start the task without any particular deadline. So forcing the students to go into the deadlines is a very, very particular situation of the procrastination, generally speaking. But what I did with my students, the experiment that we did here, actually is not going and providing them deadlines, but I look at for a different variable that is probably a good predictor to understand also their academic performance, which is emotional intelligence. What is the connection between both? Actually, we did the experiment and we distinguished between two groups. There is one group with on average, high level of emotional intelligence versus a group with a low level of emotional intelligence. And we compared both regarding their procrastination with all the dimensions of the procrastination. And as expected, actually, the group with high level of emotional intelligence have less tendency to procrastinate compared to the other group. And also, we correlate this with their academic performance. They have a better academic performance compared to the other group. Why? Because the ability of people to manage their emotions, and this is very interesting actually, because probably the whole procrastination issue can be reduced to the way you manage your emotion when you are facing the task or facing a deadline or facing an important things to do or endeavor to do with high stakes. And the more you manage your emotion, you more be able to manage your resources, from intellectual point of view, psychological point, and you will succeed on doing the task. I think there's a lot of factors in this, the results reported by that are missing, and I don't fully. First, as I mentioned, the whole experiment is conducted within a coercive context. First, second, that is not only a matter of providing them with regular deadlines. It's also how you can manage your emotion, because there's a lot of anxiety coming from deadlines, and this is for me is a missing variable in the whole equation. This is what I come up. So if you want me to advise the students, they have to manage their emotion to avoid procrastination. This is very interesting.
That is very interesting. Maybe that should be like a prerequisite or something that all freshmen should go through, how to manage your emotions. Like a lot of good schools, they offer amazing education, but maybe they also should offer some emotional support that will like guarantee their successful results.
Yes.
That is for the sake of time, I thought it will be a good idea to jump onto one of our favorite things, or like it's a funny example, and it's about talabat. So do you wanna talk about it? So we can mention like a bit of context. Would you like to mention a little bit about the organ donation example?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So do you have this slide for that? Oh, sorry, I can do it. Yeah. So this slide is depicting the number of people in the countries listed on the x-axis who sign up to donate their organs should they pass away. Okay, and so what you see is it's a very low percentage in countries like Denmark, the Netherlands, the UK, and Germany. And but in all those other countries like Austria, Belgium, France, Hungary, Poland, and so on, there's almost 100% of people are signing up for the organ donor program. And the question is like, what's going on here? And so first of all, people jump right on to things like, well, it must be cultural differences, or people how they feel about the way that you know, what happens to their body after they die, and so on and so forth. But actually, what some experiments showed was that it has to do with the way that the organ donor program is presented in these countries, and this comes back to now decision making, and that even though it seems like a simple, well, I guess it's not necessarily a simple decision, but it's actually becomes an overwhelming decision to opt in to the program. So if we look at the next slide, what actually was the difference between these countries is that in the countries with a very low organ donor people not wanting to donate their organs, the ones in the green, when they asked them to sign up for the program, they said, check this box to opt in to become an organ donor. Okay, so even though people, if you ask them in surveys, why do you want to become why won't you become? They were like, oh no, we don't mind. I wouldn't mind, actually. I agree with organ donation, but they weren't opting in. Something like effortful about actually choosing this. Whereas in the other countries with the high amount of people who are signed up for the organ donation program, what they had was an opt-out checkbox. So check this box to opt out of the organ donor program. And people also didn't check the box. And so you have like a way here to, you know, create like something that's good for society. And you also see that decision making is very effortful and not necessarily rational, because most people do agree with organ donation. And the reason why the Netherlands is higher is because the government of the Netherlands actually sent out letters to every single household begging them to participate in the program. So they got like a little boost of, you know, 10% or so from that effort. And so this comes to Talabat because, and that's an interesting story, because if you have ordered from Talabat, which I guess, you know, if you're living in Doha, you probably have done so. You remember there's this cutlery option where it says no cutlery. And I noticed recently, it used to be not checked, okay? And you used to have to check that. And I know from the people who are working with Talabat, like Dr. Fadi Maki and so on from this nudge unit here, that they were the ones that had implemented this. And they were very frustrated with Talabat in the beginning because they wouldn't opt people in. And so people have to effortlessly click there, and they weren't. People don't want to receive all this extra plastic and garbage that nobody's going to use. It's but to click that is like somehow effortful. And so, but now what I noticed recently when I ordered from Talabat is that there is it's already checked. So you just have to opt out. And I haven't seen data, but I would really bet on it that that the amount of plastic cutlery that's being sent out with Talabat deliveries has dramatically decreased because of this kind of tweak for the decision-making process. So yeah, so that was a nice way to also realize that, yeah, your decisions are
still it takes forever for them to deliver, so I don't order on Talabat anymore.
Even though they're not adding that cutlery, yeah.
The fact they are very slow to deliver. So
if you're working about, please take note. Help Dr. order. No, but that's really, thank you for bringing this example, because it makes us think, take that book from, okay, just a book written by some American professor, and help us like, okay, no, a lot of the theories in here, we can apply it to our everyday. If I'm a business owner and want to do more for the environment, maybe I can do something similar to that. I've noticed also Starbucks have recently, sometimes they will give you now the what do you call it, the cup, the plastic cup without a straw. They changed the design so you drink it directly, and that like will help straw over straw over straw. This is like a huge increase in budget and also good win for the environment. So by just changing the design of it. And they do sometimes like even like they will not give you, for example, sometimes enough tissue, so you would ask for it. So you only use it when you actually need it. So that's like interesting. So, I'm always telling people to do better decisions, more conscious decisions toward environment. And, like even if you're in a hotel and you're using the towels and stuff, like every time you're choosing to renew your towel and get extra towels, that's also the environment. I'm going off topic a little bit of the book, but
but just to follow up, it's just for those of you who are listening, who are working in design, for example, these are things to consider. The way you design a system or a place really influences how people use it, and you can do a lot of good things with your design. Yeah.
Okay, since we're running out of time, so we'll see like some last minute questions or comments. We have a long question from Christoph. Have you considered the possibility that the facts themselves are irrational, as the human's perceptions is everything? I think this is could be related to news. Relating this to economic terms, rational translates to something like, sorry, I'm losing it. Like quant fund, such as Renaissance. However, they underperform and fell from being a top firm during these irrational times, COVID. And more traditional funds run by humans basing information off our irrational have done profound better. Okay, I think from what I understood from the whole question, correct me if I'm wrong, how sometimes we could ignore the facts and just focus more on our perceptions of it and how we are irrational about it, and how even maybe COVID, in some situation, this is very controversial and it's very new for us to say it, but I feel like COVID has, some people would think that what's going on is irrational. Maybe some of the measurement taken by some countries or stuff is irrational in some businesses, and maybe some people view it irrational. So do you have a comment about that?
I'm not sure to understand the question, to be honest, but I don't know, Professor Jennifer.
I also am a little bit, I would need a little bit more context, I think, to fully get that question. Are you saying like, because we're irrational, how can we assume that we can make rational assumptions and experiments about, I don't know, sort of like wondering if it was a kind of a circular argument to some degree. But I also don't really understand.
Because, I don't know. It's confusing. The facts are irrational. There is no irrational or rational facts. I mean, the link between the facts in our mind. So to label it as rational is irrational. It depends on our perception. That's the, and then I get lost and I cannot understand fully the question. Sorry.
I felt like there was different ideas in it. However, if Christoph, you're still with us,
yeah,
you can
probably maybe.
Or if not,
rephrase the question.
Oh, he wrote.
So to speak. Okay, can you give us more example into why you included COVID in it?
It's more about ignoring the
Until
fact.
we hear back from Christoph, we also have Dan Sulaiman, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. And have you read the book? It's called Upside of Irrationality. We haven't read it. However, we'd be happy to consider it for our future sessions. But if you have read it, maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, or maybe you can maybe recommend it to us or not. So that's something. Okay, so toward the last minutes of the session, I wanted to see kind of like some last minute thoughts by our professors and our great speakers who joined us today. If you want to share some last minute thoughts, if you want to something we didn't cover that you would like to cover. So yeah, we'll go like maybe one by one and we can mention something really quickly.
All right.
Okay, I can start. The one thing I was thinking that I wanted to mention, well, one of the things, there's so much to talk about really in this, and it's so complex. So we're just touching on the tips of the iceberg. But one of the things that I was thinking about was that just to keep in mind that one of the reasons why it's hard to, lose those 5 kilos in 3 months' time and so on is also because we're not that well equipped at, we're more like about short-term gains than thinking so much into the future. So it's difficult for us to really function in long time scales, and that can even be like months or years, which is one of the reasons why climate change and combating these issues is difficult for us, because it seems like a problem that, yes, we understand it's now, but also it's quite kind of far away. So there are things we can do that in the short term that seem to give us some benefits, which we're not necessarily considering what the long-term goals of that are. So sometimes it's also, and this could be your studies, like what decisions you make, how you divide your tasks up. You have things to achieve in the next year, and just to take some time to, instead of be overwhelmed by what's happening in a long time from now, make a lot of little small goals that you can kind of reach and check off along the way, and this will help you to get to your goal of if it's 5 kilos or saving the world or whatever it is. But don't make it one big thing, but make it like many little steps. And this often will help with the cognition behind those decisions and your behaviors.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's I was quite surprised to find out that I have the same idea, but I will rephrase it in a different way. Because I would like to come back to your original criticism, which is the absence of cultural relativism to understand what's going on. And everything reported in the book actually is from American context. And one of the things that we need to understand is, guys, you don't have to make the decision by yourself or by your own. You can ask for advice. You can ask people. Social ties as a huge resource. So when you are in the lab, all the experiments here, people are isolated in the lab. Doesn't mean that this context is real. It is informative somehow about how our brain and our cognition works, but it doesn't mean to be like that in reality. When you are facing a thorny situation and you have to make a very, very important decision in your life, ask for advice. Social ties are huge resources, and this can give you also the opportunity to see different perspective. It may ease up things regarding anxiety, regarding headaches, and how to make the decision. And advice is coming from different perspective is also informative about the way we perceive things wrongly or maybe differently or maybe positively, and maybe you are lined up with the others and we can have extra consensus about what you are doing. So you don't have to make decision by your own. You can ask for help. And this is very, very interesting thing to think about, because we tend to neglect the presence of the others in our life and in our decision. The other thing also related to what you're mentioning, Professor Jennifer, is that the whole book is based on like small-scale behavioral changes, focused on very, very focused interventions. And this has been the tradition in social compliance literature for a long time. But now there is a new trend that try to understand behavior like obesity or, for example, ecological behavior, which take big chunks of your life. I mean, big cycles of your life. They're not just the small behavioral changes. And this is what we call now the behavior spillover. The behavior spillover will take into consideration really this the between and within context relationships, and it's more a holistic approach and not granular approach of the behavioral changes. That's it.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. From my end, I don't have anything extra to add. I don't want to ruin the whole book for you guys. So go grab it. I think it's wonderful. That I just want to say like a tremendous thank you for everyone who joined today. And I hope you, even if you came up with like one new idea, that's still a success. That's something new. So go grab the book. Thank you so much, Professor Jennifer and Professor Yousri, for joining. You're excellent, and I hope we can have you in future sessions as well, because most of the books nowadays, or most of the concepts nowadays, need the psychiatry like approach, angle to it to help you understand it and to help you kind of make sense of it and what's going on. So thank you so much for your valuable time, and
thanks to you for having us, and thanks to the audience for joining us as well.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.